Hello, my name is Guilherme and I help engineers to be high-performing project managers. Today I'm going to discuss a bit how I made the transition in my career from a local project manager in Brazil to a multi-million dollar project manager in Europe. This is a question I get quite often because, of course, I imagine there's a lot of people also that want to pursue an international career. There's always wondering what kind of options then you have. And that's why I'm going to share a bit of my story, my experience, the challenges that I faced here. If I go back a long time ago, um, I can tell you that probably since I was a teenager, I wanted at least the experience at the time to live abroad. And I always was looking for exchange opportunities and so on while I was still in the school, as I was underage at this point. Of course, because of financial conditions at the time, it was quite expensive to send someone from Brazil to the US, to Canada, or I don't know, Australia, New Zealand, to keep them in other country. And unfortunately at the time, it was not feasible for me. Financially, was not viable for my family to do this, something like that. But that's something that was always in the background of my mind. But at the time, of course, I did not even speak English. I really learned English after I was 20 plus years. But life goes on. Of course, I entered my engineering school, graduated, I started working a big company. And I believe it was around 2013, 2014, I start wondering if I should look for an international career or not. At the time, of course, I just had my English training completed. At least I was in a fluent level. Of course, I still had, and I probably still have a lot of things that I can improve in my English. But that was, of course, one of the foundation point because living abroad outside of Brazil, only speaking Portuguese would be pretty hard because there's only few countries in the world that speaks Portuguese, and of course speaking English that will give me a much bigger, much bigger range of countries that I could try. Then I start to investigate. I start to think about it, but yeah, in 2014 I did not do much on that. It was a challenging year professionally at the time. Life goes on. Then really in 2015, I really start say this year I want to further investigate how I can pursue an international career. I start to have discussions in the company I was working on. At the time I was working on at Toshiba. You might have heard about Toshiba Corporation, pretty big company around the world, and they have units a lot of different places, several countries, and that's where I started. Say I'm working at the company. I have a I'm perceived here as a high performing project manager, a high value employee. I was there already for I don't know 5 years or something like that. And then I tried to pursue my international career, saying if it would be possible to have a transfer to a Toshiba unit in the US or maybe in Europe or even Middle East or any other possibilities that you might have. Toshiba is pretty big. Unfortunately, at the time also the company was facing a huge crisis where they had a lot of challenging the CEO was fired, the entire board was fired, a lot of problems they had there which I do not want to discuss. But that means that because the company was saving money, the company was divesting a lot of places in a lot all around the world, and with all those uncertainties, then pursuing an international career inside of the company was not possible for me. Then of course I was not completely happy. They were telling me, wait, 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 at some point will happen. But at 2015, I was already 29. And I was like, yeah, if I really want to pursue an international career, I should try to make a move at this point. Because at the time I was single, no kids. I had some savings that I could support myself and say, if I need to take the chance, right now is the time. Then, of course, I continued to investigate how I could do something like that. But what happened, it was in the second half of 2015, my girlfriend, at the time, no, nowadays she's my wife, she got an international job offer to move to the US. And basically, at this point, I had two options, or I would have to stay where I was and follow in my career in Brazil and at Toshiba and look maybe some time in the future for an international career, or I would have to take a leap of faith and move to the US with her. And of course, moving from a different country, it's not easy. Mainly, I'm Brazilian. Then I have only the Brazilian citizenship. If I would like to, I had a visa to go to the US. Of course, that's very important. But I would have, if I would like to live there for a longer period, I would need to find a job, and I would find on finding a job, I would need to find a company that would sponsor my visa to stay. Or also one other possibility that came up at the time, I would look for a possibility to do an MBA in other places. I was looking for a lot of different MBAs around the world, some in the US, some in Europe, um, so on. But in the end, I decided to move to the US. So in February of 2016, I moved to the US to live with my girlfriend, but also to try to pursue an international career. Life is quite can be quite weird sometimes because I was looking for ways to pursue an international career, to look for MBAs for quite long. But I remember 2 weeks before I traveled to the US, a co-worker colleague of mine, he was back to Brazil and he mentioned, hey, I just did an MBA in this university, they're pretty nice. And he introduced me to the university and he made a connection and say, okay, try it. And at the time they had something that they would call like MBA weekend, where the university, for some people that they were interested to make sure that they would follow the MBA there, they even pay the air tickets and part of your stay. Then we were allowed to stay for 1 week, and they were paying hotel for half of a week. Then it's kind of, I was, this university specifically was in the Netherlands, saying I ha- I I was never in the Netherlands before, and saying why not, right? If I don't like it, at least I will go for a new country. Then of course I applied for this MBA week, but that was already, I had all my tickets and everything bought to go to the US and say let's go. Then I moved to the US, and of course, right away I start to, even before being in the US, I start to look for jobs, applications. US is quite big, all different cities, all different companies. And of course, when I was in the US, because then I basically I quit my job in Brazil and I was doing that full time, I was looking for much more possibilities there. And I was applying for a lot of positions. And in the beginning, I struggled a lot because I had been working in the same company for, at this period when I moved, for more than 6 years. Then my CV did not look good. And of course, I did not understand how a CV should look like in the US. Well, I honestly, my understanding how a CV should look like was not even good for Brazil. Then put on the top of that a different country in a different language. That was quite challenging. And I remember and I say, I'm here, I'm all in, I'm going to make this work. And I start to look for opportunities, start to apply for our different jobs, looking for different companies, and also start to look for different ways how I could also start to build up my skills. Like I start to work as a volunteer at Project Management Institute on Portland chapter, Oregon. I start to work as a volunteer on American Red Cross, and I start to look together with jobs. I start to look for also freelancer work, uh, and of course, in parallel, I continue the discussion with MBA in the university. It was, looking back, of course, it was a very nice period, very challenging because I had to learn a lot, and I had to also to sharpen my English skills because you can imagine if you do not speak English, your first language, and you only speak in English from time to time, of course you get a bit rusty. And then being the US also was the process to say I need to speed it up, I need to improve myself. But in the end, also finding companies there that it was 2016. Uh, there was a lot of talk on reducing the number of visas for expats in the US. Then our companies, I can understand the geopolitical situation. They were not very open for sponsor a visa, and I know that not all the companies they do that. But anyway, I decided to say I'm here. I'm going to try it. I don't care. And even if I would, I was determined to say if I need to apply 1,000 times and I need to hear 1,000 no's before I get an yes, that's what I'm going to do. In the meantime, of course, a lot of things changed. Then I come to the Netherlands for the MBA weekend experience. It was very nice. I basically love the university and I decide to apply right away. Say I'm going to apply for this MBA. I'm not sure if I'm going to get or not because if you know a bit of the application process for an MBA that's part of the Financial Time ranking, you have some steps. You need to pass some tests, interview, CV, and so on. Anyway, I did everything. Apply for the MBA in parallel, move on with my life in the US, trying to find a job, working as a volunteer, and trying to meet as much people as possible, trying to hire to sharpen all my skills. I also participate. I did not mention, but I also was doing Toastmaster there, which is also to improve how you're public speaking. Then for me, public speaking in Portuguese, I was okay with that, but public speaking in English, I had to build my confidence again. It was a quite nice period again, learning. I then in April, then I moved to the US. End of, I believe end of February, beginning of April, I got some freelancer opportunities working with a pharmaceutical company in New York to improve their internal procedure and their process for selling. And then I also worked with a construction company in Calgary, Canada, because it was a small construction company. They were building houses. They want to ramp up their project management skills because they did not have much there. And of course, with project management, I was already feeling pretty comfortable. I had a PMP. Then I say I can help you to improve your process, how better best practice, how to manage a process, and so on. Those freelancers work they were nice because also they helped to sharpen my skills and so on, but I can tell you the payments they were horrible. I was not making even enough money to support myself there. Then basically I would work, I would get paid something, but I would not pay even all the bills I had for 1 month. But anyway, good that I had some savings. And of course, if you have some savings and you need to leave from your savings every time that you earn some money there, it helps, right? That's also was the freelancer work. Then I remember that around June time frame, I got the acceptance from the university at Nairobi at the Netherlands, and I also got a scholarship there, and I had a few weeks that I need to decide. Either I would continue this path in the US, trying to apply for jobs, getting a sponsorship, or I would move for an MBA. Well, basically, so far I was pursuing everything in parallel, and what happened is you at sometimes in life you need to take decisions and you need to take the risks. Of course, the reason why I applied for this university because I visited university, I enjoyed very much. I like the country and everything else. And besides, of course, I was having a very nice international experience already in the US working as a freelancer, but the payment was not good. I was having, of course, hard time with things that I was learning, I was improving, like improving my English, improving how I create a CV, improving for interviews. I had some interviews and some of them were yeah, I went really bad. But that everything was part of my journey. Then I decided at some time that I would say I was thinking on an MBA and doing an MBA already for a couple of years. I got accepted in a nice university where I like it and so on. I got a scholarship. I say, okay, I'm also going to take another leap, making another move to a different country to do an international MBA. And that's what I did. Then in October 2016, I moved to the Netherlands to start my MBA here. Got in here, of course, some of those challenges that I had in the beginning, I was already improving and overcoming. Like I at least I figure out how to have a better CV. I figure out how to better prepare for interviews. My English was better, and I was going to do something that I was really enjoying. And the MBA there was quite nice, I can tell you. When I moved to, I liked the entire MBA and the entire MBA experience because I had classes full day, a lot of very interesting topics, at least in my perspective: finance, supply chain, operations, even marketing. It was a quite nice journey, but of course, I knew that would take 1 year, and after 1 year, I would be there again. I say then I would not have a job, and of course, I would need to go to the market again. And of course, I do not want to complete my MBA and take a long time to find a job. That because I had some savings, and as you can imagine, living from savings, it gets harder and harder and harder more if the time pass by. And then I start to look for opportunities. At this time, my CV was already much better. My English was much sharper. I was much more prepared for interviews. Then I remember that after some interview rounds, some discussions with some companies, I finally got an opportunity in a company. I got like their work, I got their job proposal even before graduating my MBA. That was something quite nice because I believe I had to still defend my final thesis and to do some stuff. But of course, knowing that I already had a job, I already had a contract signed, then everything was much enjoyable. Saying that's then you say I'm going to enjoy my free time, and then of course before I jump into work again. At this company was Sensata Technologies, also in the Netherlands. I was working as a sourcing program manager for automotive business to develop their supply chain. What happened? They had a lot of supply chain in Asia, and they were further developing their supply chain in Europe to support a new plant that was open at the time at Bulgaria. Quite nice journey. Of course, after there, I stay a few years there. Then I move for another company till I get where I am right now. But talking on international career, things that, of course, that I really went to the entire process, and the lessons that I learned in this process. That's also something that I want to share with you. Well, first of all, if you're looking for an international career, from whatever you're coming, maybe Brazil, maybe India, maybe Peru, maybe Mexico. The transition is never easy. There's, or you might have even some people that they get the transition easier because they get a job offer even in their country and the company will expatriate them. But I can tell you, living in another country, it's not easy at all. When you get there, you need to figure out everything from really basic stuff like the supermarkets. Like in the Netherlands, the supermarket they do not accept credit card. In Brazil, I would pay everything with the credit card, and yeah, you need to learn how you buy a car, how you rent a house. Everything is different from country to country. Then the journey, it's not easy. It's a worthwhile journey if that's what you want. But why I'm saying that, also finding a job and so on. Why I'm saying it's not easy? Because if you're going to stop in the first no that you're going to get, I would say don't bother. Because very likely, if you're wanting an international career, well, you need to enhance your CV. You need to learn how to prepare your CV. You need to prepare for interviews. You might need to sharpen your language skills. You need to know a lot of about a new country. You need to adapt to a different culture. There's a lot of things on the top of only finding a job. And then if at the first stop that you're going to give up, if you remember, I mentioned that In 2015, I started with this idea and start to have discussions inside the company I was working on. It took me over a year to finally move on. So it's not something straight away. Something quite important also. Sometimes you need to take the leap of faith. And by leap of faith, I'm not just saying quit your job and see what happened. No, that's not it. But you need to take the chances. You need to figure out, move forward, take risks. Of course, some risks you also need to manage, right? But you need to take the action. You need to move forward. You cannot always keeping planning, wishing for a better time. There's no better time than today. Today is the best time. You want to know what would be the best time to do something? Yesterday. The second best time is today. So if you're really looking for that, you need to start work on that. So taking the leap, believing, taking chances, taking risks, that's quite important. Well, it was only after I quit my job in the final days in the company that I find out figuring out the university that I would do my MBA late, like almost I don't know 10 months in the future. But this discussion, I don't think it would ever happen if I was not already decided to move to another country. Because that was something that popped up in the coffee. I was talking with someone saying that I'm leaving the company, blah blah blah. And then I said, why we don't go there? And usually, whatever you believe, it's fate, the universe, God, or whatever. When you put yourself out there, when you take the risks, usually the universe, God, and give you opportunities. But you need to be willing to take the first step and take the risk, because if you want to be 100% sure about everything that you're going to do in life, you're not going to do anything. That's quite important. Then you need to take your chance, you need to move forward. Some other very nice things that I learned: knowing how to prepare a CV. That's something that you can already start working on whatever you are. I had to move to the US. Of course, I mentioned that I was applying for positions before already in Brazil, but I was applying with a very crappy CV, to be honest. And took me a while. It took me. I had a mentor. Took me also in the university I work on. They had a department that they could help us. And of course, here then I start to practice. And I start to try it, and I got to the level that I am today when I kind of know how to prepare. I understand how to prepare a CV, things how you should work on. But that's not straightforward. It takes practice, it takes experience, and you need to go for it. So if you have the chance to start working your CV, you should. Because when you are working your CV, you also can complement things that you think are better. For example, even though I was not really working for the best CV as I can, or I don't know, end of on 2013, that I thought, oh, I might want to do an international career. What I did say, I'm going to take a PMP. Why? Because a PMP will help me to work as a project manager abroad, because it's the most recognized certification around the world. And that's why I did the PMP. And I got PMP certified in 2014, 2 years before I moved to the US. And that's just one example. You need to work, of course, in the form, how your CV looks like, you can customize. But for some things you can do it. Other thing I did, because I of course years before I learned English, then I did a TOEFL, because that would prove to companies and also to the universities that I would like to apply for MBA that I could speak English. Then that something was something important for me. And of course, this is not the kind of stuff that you can do in one day or other. Like, to improve a language, at least will take you a few weeks or a couple of months to get to a level to have a high score in an exam like TOEFL. Same thing for a PMP. You maybe be able to do it in 1 or 2 months, 3 months. That's more or less 3 months. It's more or less what I did. But of course, it needs time. I took a preparation, I studied, and so on. So building up your CV, it's also the form. but also stuff that you can build, that you can do as a preparation there. Preparing for interviews. The first interview I went to the US was bad, really bad. And looking back, I need to laugh because like I went to the interview, I was like, yeah, I finally got an interview. When I got there, my performance was horrible. I was not even prepared how to answer those questions, what I would say. And I was anxious because of that. And I was anxious because it was my first interview in another language. And all those things I could have prepared before. And the fact that I had to learn the hard way. But if you want to pursue an international career, I'm suggesting you, do not go for the hard way. You can go it in a better way that will get results faster. Other thing that's quite important, uh, it's when you are looking for a job, it can be even in your country, in another country, in another industry. Sometimes it takes time. I wish that everyone that would send the first CV, they would have an interview and they would be hired. It happens. It already happened with me, some opportunities in my career. But I can tell in this transition from Brazil to the US to the Netherlands, I applied for a lot of jobs. Some of them with a crappy CV. When I mean crappy, I mean that the format was not good, the wording that I was not used, that it was not customized, and was not it was not very good, so it would be uh, highlighted, or someone would highlight them among a lot of CVs. Not that I'm saying that it was a bad CV. I was already an engineer, had experience with project management. I was a PMP, but the way I was presenting it was not good. So I apply for positions, and a lot of them I've never heard anything back on that. I talk with headhunters. Sometimes they would reach me out, and I would send my CV, and they would never reply me back. And I get it; it's not nice, and I wish that would be different. But what I wish, it does not matter. It does not matter that you understand the reality that you are on and you move forward. Because guess what? It might be that you are not going to hear back from a lot of the applications. And you could not let this kind of stuff to stop you. It might be that you go in a lot of interviews and you get a lot of no's. That's fine. You should not let that kind of stuff to stop you. Then it's important that you develop a kind of a very thick skin in this kind of stuff and you move forward. That's why a bit of the anti-fragile mentality, that every time that you get a no, you find a way to improve yourself and you try again. This is very important because guess what? If you're in a situation similar than it's not that you need to be as good as everyone else. You need to be a step higher. Why? Because if the company have an option to hire someone that's local, that means they do not have sponsor visa. There's less bureaucracy, less cost, and less risk with that. And they would go for that. They only hire someone that's an expat because they think this person has skills that are not so easy to find. And that's what you should aim for. So if you're expecting that you're going to have an average CV and that would work out fine for you, it might work. I don't know. But I'm saying if you want to increase your chance, you need to make sure your CV not here. I'm not talking about only the form, but also you enhance your skills. That what are you learning, what you're training, how you're developing yourself. That's important. And then of course, if you have a CV, if you go well in an interview, then it goes to the next step. When you are in the job position, you also need to perform. Because guess what? This company, they were not going to keep you there if your performance is bad. Mainly considering that you expect that they need to sponsor a visa, then there's a lot of stuff. And those are the kind of things that you need to be prepared for. And of course, in the top of that, if you're in a different country with a different language, That's a lot of challenge that you need to face. So if you have this mentality and say, "Oh, I applied for a position, no one replied to me, I'm sad." Sorry to say, don't leave your home. The world is not like that. You need to move forward. I understand sometimes you get down. That's normal. It also happens with me. I'm not perfect and no one is perfect. But what's important, if you are down in one day, in the other day you wake up and you do it again. And the other day you wake up and you do it again. And you keep going until you get it. But of course, when I'm saying do it again, I'm not saying do exactly the same thing again. You need to learn from one step to another and you keep moving forward. And those are the kind of things that will help in your international career. And of course, if you are looking for how to migrate from one country to another, there's several possibilities. You can apply for a position already outside. A lot of companies they hire people from another countries and they bring to a specific country because their skill is not something that you can easily find. You can do for an MBA or for a master in a country, but do it for something that really worthwhile for you and that you like it, and not just for doing something because that also in the end I've seen that also going bad that does not help you. You can also ask for a transfer in your company. So there are several options. And like if you have a citizenship, like you can live in a different country, you can just move around and being there, it helps you. But of course, things like if you have some savings that help you, if you have some support that help you, if you can visit the country before to understand if you would fit there, that help you. All those kinds of things that you can do upfront, it help you. And I can tell you, please prepare as much as you can upfront because that will save you time there and will save you stress. But again, you can have the best plan in the world. There's always going to be something new. There's always going to be challenges, and you need to be ready for that. Because it might not be the challenge to get a job because you already got a job, but it might be a challenge to get a house. It might to be a challenge to understand how the healthcare system works. There's a lot of things that they are going to pop up, and you need to be prepared for that. And I can tell you, living abroad, it throws away your comfort zone out of the window. Forget about your comfort zone. So you need to be prepared to handle that. Of course, with the time and you start to get used and you start to build some comfort zone here, the comfort zone will never be the same as in your country. I can tell you, like I've been in the Netherlands for more than 6 years right now, and of course the comfort zone that I have here is already different from the one that I have in Brazil. Well, because I've lived more than 20 years in Brazil, I have families, I know much more people, I have a big network also there. But living abroad, it's an adventure, it's a challenge, but you need to be prepared for that. And understanding that focusing what you can control is quite important here. And what you can control for preparation, what you can control in this country, and how you are going to move forward, and how you need to learn to take a lot of no's before you get an yes. All those things, they are important in this journey. Because if you're going to give up, once you get in your new country because I give up. I apply for two positions and no one ever replied to me. Yeah, sorry, but I've when I was trying to move, I applied for more than 100 positions, and that did not stop me. Otherwise, I would not be here today. So I suggest you, because I've heard that more than once from a lot of people. I applied for a position already and I did not get any feedback. Not saying that's nice, but that's life. Move on. Try again. Learn something new, improve your CV, learn a new skill, prepare better for an interview, and move on. Because that's how you're going to get an international career, not by giving up in the first difficulty there. I hope you like this content. Please make your comment here. You also can ask questions, and I would love to hear your feedback here. You also, if you like it, of course, click in the button like and share with more people that you think might be interesting on that. Also, you can, if you like the content, follow me on YouTube and follow me on Instagram. And on Instagram, I share daily content that you might like it about project management, about how to enhance your skills there. And hopefully to see you again, to see you soon again. Thank you. Bye.